Hello and welcome back to the Lore Raider. I'm really sorry for the delay. I've had a creator's block where I'd write scripts, and then I'd scrap them and write a new one, and then on and on and on and on. But finally I managed to settle on this one and get this one out. So thank you for your patience. As you all know, Metroid Dread has been out and done a lot for the Metroid universe in terms of storytelling, lore, world building, and characterizing our favorite female bounty hunter. But what interests me most is what Metroid Dread has done for power scaling in the Metroid universe. Today we'll be taking a look at where various characters in Metroid Dread placed on the old power scaling line. So without further ado, let's begin. Starting with our old good friend Kraid, it's worth noting that he has gotten a massive power boost since we last saw him in Super Metroid. Now some of you, if you've been on my channel for long enough, might expect me to claim that he's always top of the verse, but he wasn't, and he still isn't. He scaled to base power suit Samus in Super Metroid, and that version of Samus should be relative to Ridley at his weakest, who can bust this plateau, which is buffed by the 960 times gravity of planet Zebes, to make it an island level attack. Kraid all these years later should be relative to that level of power when you see him in Super Metroid. Now if you don't believe me, remember that even base power suit Samus can hurt Super Metroid Ridley here during the skirmish aboard the Ceres space colony with the basic power beam, let alone the charge beam or missiles. Of course Samus lost this fight against Ridley, but it's to my point that Super Metroid Kraid should scale to weaker manga Ridley pretty comfortably. Now in Dread, we know that after his defeat on Zebes, he was captured by the Makin tribe of Chozo and put up some sort of resistance against them, even though he should be weakened here. He also became heat resistant, as unlike previous games where Samus could reach him with the basic power suit, his dungeon is located in the heated areas of Cataris that requires the Varia suit. Now it is important to remember how strong this version of Samus is. If you're a fan of my channel, you already know where I'm going. Varia Suit Samus was able to perform this universe level white hole feat that does indeed scale to her durability, and now here's Kraid contending with this Samus. Now you may think I'm crazy and insane, but it's actually consistent, shown that since Prime Hunters she's been at her peak universe level, and it's become more and more casual for her to become universe level as the series goes on. For example, in Prime Hunters, she needed the Alembic strongest weapon ever, the Omega Cannon, to harm Guerrilla. In Prime 2, she needed the literal light suit to deal with Dark Samus. By the end of the timeline, she's performing casually white hole level feats in her Varia suit, which makes her Universe Plus to multiversal, but I digress. My point is that Kraid is contending with Samus, so Universe level Kraid. Never thought I'd ever say those words, but hey, here we are. I actually think the Emmi shows that the people over at Nintendo really know what we power scalers want out of the Metroid series. So let's just be frank about this. The Emmi are physically scaling above Samus no matter what you do by a considerable margin. Samus has been grabbed by enemies in previous games, no doubt, most consistently by Ridley, but when she is grabbed she can still damage them. But here, even Gravity Suit Samus has no recourse besides countering them and hoping to slip away. It is stated that the Emmi are created from the strongest materials the Galactic Federation has to offer, if not the strongest materials in the verse, but that is debatable. But the strength of the armor shows. I mean, Metroid Dread also suggests that the Omega Cannon, which is used to defeat the Emmi, is considerably above Samus' normal attack potency, given how it is the only thing that can, even harm the Emmi, which also means there's a strong argument that weakened Guerrilla from Prime Hunters is actually low multiversal, not universal. And the Emmi are also low multiversal, given how all the scaling works, and given how full power Gravity Suit Samus can't hurt them, and literally gets one-shot by them. So very interesting there. But that isn't the only thing we have to consider. Let's talk about the yellow Emmi, which has the speed booster. So it's pretty obvious the Emmi normally can keep up with Samus's base running speed. I mean, it's a pretty ironclad fact. But what I find interesting is how Samus without the speed booster can evade the speed booster using Emmi. Now you can read this in one of two ways. A, you could use this as a legitimate speed feat for Samus, and that she has, gotten significantly faster since Samus enjoyed manga. Or you could argue that the Emmi can't fully harness the speed booster to its full potential. I think it's worth noting though that between the Charge Beam Beast in Metroid Zero mission, the Morph Ball Ing during the Prime series, and the Speed Booster Amped Gunship during the Samus Joy manga, it has consistently showed that other beings can effectively appropriate Samus's abilities for themselves. So I don't think that the evidence leans toward the second conclusion. I actually think the evidence leans toward the idea that this is a real speed amp or speed feat for Samus. But no matter where you stand on it, the Emmi are a massive buff for the Galactic Federation when it comes to tangling with science fiction's other premier galactic governments. So this should be interesting to see how discussions about the Federation versus the Galactic Empire go with the Emmi involved. So the X have always been an interesting topic of debate in the Metroid community, mostly because it wasn't always completely clear if being X infected was a direct amp compared to the original creature, but as of now, it does certainly seem to be that way thanks to Dread. Now don't get me wrong, there was always evidence of this infusion. For example, during the Boiler Room incident, Samus can shoot this scientist with missiles and beams, and he'll have enough time to actually turn and face Samus before turning into a Core X. Now remember, in Super Metroid, common space pirates died in one basic beam shot, so this is actually well above the normal fodder level. Well, in Dread we get far more evidence. These little wall suckers, for example, take one missile to kill at first, but the X variant have fire breathing and can take multiple hits to finish off. Or the X imitating this crab boss literally created a huge glory electrified variant of the creature that is stronger than the rest, which again suggests the X can create unique variants of creatures and amp them. How the X parasite mimicking the experiment went from being, a dead Corpius-like creature to giving Gravity Suit Samus here a run for her money. All in all, now one can safely say that X parasite copies are genuinely stronger than the original with full confidence. Beak is the strongest antagonist in the series. Yeah, I said it, he's stronger than SAX, stronger than Dark Samus, stronger than Ridley, and he's stronger than the weakened Guria fought and Prime Hunters. I'm sorry, the scaling is just there. In the opening cinematic of the game, we see him square up against a fully equipped Various Suit Samus, and he won fairly low difficulty. And it is clear that he wasn't going all out during the fight, seeing as he needed Samus alive so he could harness her Metroid abilities later. Scaling him comfortably above this Various Suit Samus already puts him above most of Samus's rogue gallery, including Metroid Dread Kraid, the one I mentioned earlier, who fought a Various Suit Samus but without most of her upgrades. We also see in the Chozo archives he beat the absolute shit out of the first Emmi, broke its face mask, and literally ripped off one of its arms. And given how beat up the Emmi is and how unharmed Beak looks, it's pretty obvious he did so, again, with relative ease. So we have a character who is now suggested to be above even Gravity Suit Samus, who is fully equipped on a physical level because this Samus only beat the orange Emmi thanks to her energy drain. Then we get to the final fight between Beak and Samus, when we see just what he can do. Besides, of course, being able to fly, having mastery over the Flash Shift and Shine Spark, having a bunch of new abilities, and so on and so forth, he can also create a small artificial star, which is insane if you do the math for the gravity of a star that size, it would be able to destroy the Earth many times over by it being that close to it, but I digress. The fight shows us he is more than capable of contending with Samus' speed, and by the end of the fight, he literally speed blitzes Samus, and the game actually suggests he was still holding back somewhat and not fighting at full power, as he is easily able to choke the life out of Samus when he wants to, and he doesn't at all look or sound fatigued or injured. So it's pretty clear that, and kinda irrefutable, that Raven Beak is solidly above Gravity Suit Samus by a wide margin. And this is where we need to talk about, of course, the amazing Metroid Suit Samus, because, oh my god, this was exactly what Samus needed to efficiently, and in my opinion, irrefutably, inch her way into that low multiversal club and contend there. So when she first activates it, she's able to one-shot the armor on Raven Beak's head, the same armor that resisted all of her previous attacks, and began tussling with Raven Beak before physically overpowering him and slamming him to the ground. What's important in this interaction that we know that Raven Beak isn't holding back anymore here. He's trying to save his own life, obviously, and yet Metroid Suit Samus is able to overpower him. This should put Samus above the Emmi physically, by a lot. After all, we saw how easily Raven Beak could overpower the Emmi. She's able to drain the energy then from the entire flying fortress and cause it to crash land. Now, credit to Raven Beak, he is strong enough to survive his energy being drained like that, because we know Metroid is able to drain life from targets very quickly, but maybe you can argue that Samus was primarily draining the ship and not him, but who knows. What I can say is when Raven Beak is absorbed by the X parasite, he would have gotten an absolutely massive amp when the X combined his DNA and power with the experiment's power, with Kraid's power, plus the passive amp we know things get from being an X mimic. And Samus killed it. Oh, and then Samus does the impossible and literally destroys a free-floating X. Something she could never do before, which means she can hit intangible objects. I mean, she already could by killing ghosts in 2 games, but this just adds to that level of power. As she is running across and out of the doomed planet ZDR, we also observe that she's able to suck the life out of creatures by just touching them, which again is absolutely overpowered and I live for it. Finally, she makes it back to her ship and absorbs the Thorha genes from Quiet Robe X, allowing her to balance out her gene pool and control her Metroid powers before narrowly escaping the explosion of ZDR. So, in conclusion, if Samus fights someone who doesn't have resistance to life drain, and I mean high tier life drain, then they're kinda screwed. I mean, I was willing to state Doomslayer vs Samus would be a draw, because Slayer is high multiversal and raw power, while Samus has her ludicrous quadrillion times its light speed. But now that she can literally just life drain him, not get hit because of the speed, it's kind of no difficulty who's gonna win. I mean, yeah, he's done. It's not even a contest anymore, and I don't mind staking my reputation on that fact. Metroid Suit Samus is the Samus we power scalers needed, and my god, I cannot wait to put her in so many a versus battle video. Just you wait. And that concludes our video, and my thoughts on the state of Metroid power scaling post Metroid Dread. With this game having come out, I'm more excited than ever to present Samus in more versus battle matchups to come. But what did you think of Metroid Dread? Do you think I'm right? Do you think she can hang out with the big boys like Goku, for example? Or do you think I'm wrong? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and while you're there, what kind of videos do you want to see next? Until then though, why don't you all be safe, be wise, and I'll see you next time.